Hey Code Nation, welcome to Unit 4 of the Fellowship 1 curriculum. Congratulations on finishing your tic-tac-toe projects. I can't wait to see them. So in this unit, we are going to be building a fun music-based playlist. And in order to do that, we're going to be learning about two different data types. And so the first one is an array. And so our objectives for today are to create an array and retrieve an array element using the index, and then we'll complete a project plan. And so arrays might be new to you, or you might already be familiar with them, but some new terms might be array, element, and index, and we'll talk about what all of those things mean. So an array, like I've said before, is a data structure that stores multiple values into a single variable. So if you were going to build a web page about vegetables, like you do, you might have 3 different variables for your different vegetables, but it's much more organized and reusable to store them all in one variable so that we can update them later and access them. So arrays get used all the time in code. An example might be in Popcode if we wanted to organize all of our different Popcode projects. And so here we have this your project, and you can see all of the different projects that this person was working on. Another example of where you might use an array is with a shopping cart. And so here we see there are 3 items in the shopping cart, and instead of storing each one as its own separate variable, we are keeping them all together so that they're organized. And this trampoline looks really fun. So an array element is each individual value in the array. So this is an array called grades, and it has 3 elements. And those 3 elements are 100, 90, and 80. And they're all of the same data type. They're all numbers. Array elements are listed inside of square brackets, and they're separated by commas. And so we declare a new variable to give the array a name. So we're saying let cookies, the same way you would declare any other variable. And then we put square brackets, and then we have our values here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements in this array that are all separated by commas. And here all of the array elements are strings, and they look delicious. The array index is the location of the array element. The first array index is always going to be 0 and not 1. And so this is a place where a lot of programmers run into what's called an off by 1 error. So if you think you're starting at 1 and not 0, you might think that Peter is at the 5th place in the array, but it's actually at index 4. So Andrew is at index 1, Andrew's at index 0, Emily is at index 1, and so on. You can kind of think about it like index is like your position in a parking lot. And so here, even though there are 6 cars, the last array position is 5 because we start at 0. We can use these indexes in order to retrieve an element so we can do something with it, because we always want our code to do something. And so if we wanted to retrieve the value Andrew, we would call the array name teachers, and then we would use the square brackets, and we read this as sub. So we'd say teachers sub 0, and that'll give us Andrew. If we were to say teachers sub 1, teachers in the square brackets 1, that's going to retrieve Emily. So what is the element at array index 2? So we're going to go 0, 1, 2. That array or element is Jess. And then the second question here is, what is the index of Peter? So you go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So Peter is at teachers sub 4. We can see that here, teachers sub 2, index 4, or teachers sub 4. So what does an array look like in your code? So here we have an array called BFFs. My BFFs are Jill, James, and Ashley. Here we have an array called my classes, and we have 3 classes, 3 array items, and these are all strings once again. So if we wanted to retrieve elements from an array, we can use a variable. We could say we have this array of BFFs. If my best BFF is Jill, I'm going to set this variable best equal to that index, and we're going to console.log it. If that's confusing, that's okay. We will go over it in the guided practice. So we'll take a minute to pause, and I'll see you there. All right, so here we are in Popcode. I'm going to log in to save, and I'm going to start reading the instructions. Part 1 of task 1 is guided practice, and part 2, task 5, is guided practice. So I'm going to do those things first and then give you a chance to work on it on your own, and then we can go over the solution. So the first thing I want to do is update the variable song list so that it is an array with at least 3 song titles. So in order to make an array, I need square brackets. You can have an empty array. This is an array with 0 items inside of it. I'm going to make all my song titles strings. You can have empty strings. That's okay. Popcode's not going to yell at you. Now I need to give these songs some titles. They are all going to be Taylor Swift songs because I'm basic. And now I want to see what my array looks like. So I'm going to console.log it. When you are working in JavaScript more and more, it's really helpful to rely on the console. So I've console.logged it. So now I'm going to pop open my console and I can see my Taylor Swift songs. Part 2, task 5, is to update the variable fave song to retrieve the array element of your favorite song in the song list. My favorite song is Betty, which is at array index 1. So I'm going to go song list sub 1. Let's see. Oh, I have this lowercase, but I'm using camel case because it's a JavaScript style choice. So now I'm going to console.log fave song. If I wanted to, I could also just console.log this statement here. Just wanted to show you 2 different ways we can do this. I'm going to comment out these 2 console.log statements because I don't want things to get too messy in the console. I'm going to pause and drink some more coffee, and then we can work on the rest of the tasks together. All right, I just went ahead and finished up so you didn't have to suffer through me typing and talking at the same time. So we have an array called class list with 4 students, and we console.logged it. We've logged it to the console, if you will. We have a teacher list, which I did not log to the console, so I will do that now, with 4 teachers, 4 CodeNation staff members. And then here we have an array of ages. One thing that's interesting about JavaScript, maybe cool, maybe annoying, is that you don't have to have just one variable type in your array. So I use numbers, but I also have 23 in quotes, which makes it a string, just to show you that it's a fun quirk about JavaScript when you're working with it. For part 2 here, I changed this to youngest student because I don't like to play favorites. So we're logging the youngest student, which is at index 0. We're logging the tallest teacher, which is at index 1. If we wanted to instead get the shortest teacher, we would want index 0. And that's me. And then the last one here, the oldest family member would be me. I have my off by 1 index error here. I actually want 0 and not 1 because 1 would be 23, but I'm the oldest at 28. So that is all you need to know about arrays in order to start your project.